Hi, everyone.
Mm, Should we start with Yogesh from 5G Updates?
Sure. Yeah, just give me a minute. Yeah, so I'll share my screen. Uh, yeah, is my screen visible, Shubha?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, hi everyone. So this is quick update for 5G SA. As part of our regular CI/CD, we are keeping track of the PRs which are getting merged, especially in the 4G areas, if it is impacting. So the regular CI/CD activity is ongoing. We have fixed a critical defect related to NSA. Yeah, we have seen on the Slack a couple of folks are interested in the NSA feature. So in the 5G non-standalone mode, this fix was critical, so it is fixed now, and it has been tested with some Tier 1 PNPs and GNPs. There were a couple of defects which were reported on top of 1.8. We have updated the specific PRs, provided the information that why it's not a defect or we are not able to reproduce. So for those, but we have not received the PRs, we have closed it. So these are some of the defects which were raised post 1.8. And we have added a new dashboard view for GNVs and UE. So that PR is still under review, but what we wanted to show was, meaning we can see the number of UEs and GNVs that are present as part of 5G connections. Of course, this was already existing for 4G. For 5G, we did it in the current release. So this PR is under draft, but hopefully this week or early next week it will get merged. So with that, we can see the statistics from the dashboard itself. Yeah, so I think that's all pretty much from my side. Any questions, anyone?
Yeah, I do have a question, somewhat very general here. But in which Magma release will we have like a 5G SA with AMF and all the other components? And second part of the question is it going to be part of the so yeah, how will it be? It will be inside of the access gateway, I suppose. But yeah, so in which release will it be available?
Yeah, 5G SA is already part of Magma 1.8 release. So
1.8. Okay.
Yes. So I think we can see the release notes. Of course, we have to enable the 5G feature flag, but by default, 5G feature is already part of it is the GA release as part of 1.8 release, and if we go to the Newberry release notes, we can see the test cases. So you see here, these are there are different radios where it has been tested. The next DTA 1376. So these are some of the 5G SAs we have tested. So these are the specific devices which we have tested. Either we have tested or somebody from the community have tested. The detailed report of the testing is present here. So test report, test logs, feature coverage. So it is pretty much there in 1.8. It is by default disabled, but it is a GA and it can be used.
Okay, and is it presented in the documentation how to enable 5G versus like?
Yes.
Okay,
so if we go to of course, what I can do is I can put those links here, but it's all documented in the Magma docs. Okay. Maybe I can, for quick reference, I can put all that information here, and I'll post it in Project 5G as well with all the links and descriptions.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, if no further questions, then I think we can move to the next section.
Yeah, so next is DevOps update, starting with Lars.
Yeah, Lars is actually not here today, but I will take over. I will share my screen. So in scope of the ongoing community handover, we committed ourselves to share our knowledge by providing more documentation. This is tracked by this issue here. I can quickly open it. It's an overview of the issues that are planned and ongoing. And this is based on the Confluence page that was already discussed and shown in the last town hall meeting. But there were a lot of updates here. And in order to quickly show the currently added documentation, so we already presented this yesterday in the DevOps meeting, but I think we have a lot of different people here, so I will go quickly over it. The first one is the technical infrastructure overview. So this is basically a summary of the external components that are used by Magma, like Slack, GitHub itself, the Artifactory, but this is mainly used to have an overview together with some support information. So if you need access for development, if you have technical issues, then you can find here places who to contact. The next one is a little bit larger. It's the Artifactory documentation in more detail, but don't worry, I will not go into too much detail here. But basically what is documented here is the general structure. What artifacts are we publishing? So Docker images, Debian artifacts, and miscellaneous. And important for our Artifactory that is hosted by the Linux Foundation is that we don't have manual write access. We only have write access to this Artifactory by CI. And listed here are the workflows that publish artifacts to the different repositories and also promote workflows that needs to be used for the next release. This is new. Because we cannot promote the artifacts manually, we need to trigger workflows for this, and these are the currently existing workflows. The next one is the third-party dependency documentation, and I think Cameron took care of that. So maybe you want to say a couple of words about this one?
Yeah, sure. So Magma uses some third-party dependencies, and this is just a brief overview of this situation. So sort of reasons why this might be needed, but of course there are like varying reasons, and then how they are built in CI, so which scripts are used and what the workflows are, and then finally how they're published. So also how, if you want to publish these to the Artifactory, then how do you do that?
Thank you. The last one was added by Lars. It's about backporting code. It's not complete documentation, but it is included in the backporting, in the contributing code documentation. So this is basically what was used a lot during the last release. So how are backporting pull requests created, and how can they be merged to release branches. So feel free to have a more detailed look to this documentation. It would help us if we get feedback in order to improve it, but they are located in the GitHub wiki. So also feel free to add content yourself. Any questions about the documentation part?
One thing I just add maybe is just to say that if you notice documentation that's missing, then feel free to add it to that issue. And then we can try and take care of certain things.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Then another DevOps related update. I have quickly presented you the Artifactory documentation together with the promote workflows. And the last workflow was now recently added. It's the promote workflow for Debian artifacts. So after a release branch is created, usually in the test repository, all the artifacts will be published. These are then tested extensively, and if they are tested successfully, then these Debian artifacts are copied over to the production artifactory. They are not built again, and this is done by this promote workflow that can only be run manually in case of the finished release testing. Yeah, that's it from my side from the DevOps update. Then next is Marco with test stabilization update.
Yeah, thank you. Let me quickly share my screen. Yeah, I have the same argument as Niels. I already reported this yesterday in the DevOps meeting, but with the different crowd here, I will talk to you about this again. So we took a deeper look into the failing tests in CI, especially with the containerized HEW tests. So these are the LTE integration tests, which run with an HEW Docker based. And we do see some infrastructure failures, but also we identified one test which was failing quite often. And we analyzed this test and the failing behavior, and we merged a pull request. Quick background information about the HEW. So in a system D-based HEW, we have different Magma services. And if you restart one of them, you trigger a cascade which restarts multiple services. Of course, in a Dockerized environment, this is per default not the case. And so in order to mirror the behavior from system D and to the containerized HEW, we implemented this cascade into the test framework, which is, of course, then not the case for a production environment of Magma. So just at the moment in a test environment, if you restart one container, you trigger a restart of multiple containers, which takes quite some time. And for this particular test, we suspect then that we have a race condition between all the container restarts and the timer which is tested here. And in order to fix this, we for this specific test, we only restart the MME individually without triggering a restart of the other containers. And by this, we got this test green, and we hope that we stabilized the whole test suite.
If it's okay, I have a small addition to that. So implication is, of course, that restarting a single service with system D is much faster than restarting a container and restarting other containers implied by that. So this might be something that should be analyzed if the Dockerized HEW is performant enough, especially for cases like keeping in time with these special timers. But if I understood correctly, Jordan is already looking in such restart mechanics. So correct me if I'm wrong, but again, might be a performance problem overall.
Yeah, we also had a hard time to reproduce this on our local machines, but in CI, this test was failing quite frequently. Okay, and if there are no more questions, I would hand back to Niels with a fix for the 1.8 release branch.
Yeah, So you should see my screen again. So we had to backport one fix to the release branch, but this is a fix that doesn't need to rebuild the release artifacts. It's only for CI. Also, in scope of the community handover, we are currently taking a look if all release workflows and artifact creation for the 1.8 release are possible, and if everything can still be installed. And one thing was that we noticed that a fix that was needed on the master branch for the Bazel workflow, because between Christmas and New Year, some repositories changed and we had to fix this. And this is now also applied to the 1.8 branch in order to keep the CI workable. Bazel updates, again, Lars is not here today, so I will quickly go over this. In the Dockerized AGW, there was one service missing that was not built with Bazel, it was still built with Make. So session-D and so on were already built with Bazel for a long time. Now also MME is built with Bazel. So now every C service in the containerized AGW is built with Bazel. The Go and the Python services do not need Bazel because they are built directly in case of for Go. For Python, of course, nothing needs to be compiled. Also, the integration test environment is now built with Bazel. This is something that is needed before the integration tests are executed. So we need to build all proto files for Python and for C. For Go, they are already checked in. And the Swagger specifications needs to be compiled. This is now done by Bazel as well. The tests itself are still executed with a make file, but in this case, make is just a wrapper for calling PyTest. So it would be possible, of course, to migrate this to a bash script, but there's just no benefit because in this case, make is not used for building something. It's just used as a very thin wrapper to call PyTest. And a small advertisement next week on Wednesday. Lars will give a session, a show and tell session about Bazel, also in scope of the community handover. So focus will be how is it used, how it can be maintained in the future, if the community chooses to follow this build system. And yeah, we looking forward to see a lot of people there. Any questions? Then, thank you very much, and back to Shubham.
Yeah, so next we have Bazel updates. I think everything is done. Do we have any other topics to discuss today? If not, then thank you everyone. Thanks for joining in. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone.